very disappointed with a number of Mr. Clayton's answers. It's not in many ways reflective of the person that I've worked with over the years, but I worry that there seems to be this criteria that this administration is putting out about no one who's put up for any position can tell the truth about 2020 election. That's deeply unsettling.
The understanding that Jay Clayton could actually pick up a number of Democratic votes. You have to remember, he'll be taking the reins from Bill Pulte, who Democrats said had zero experience, was completely unfit for the job. Jay Clayton previously led SDNY, previously led the SEC. They saw him as a formidable candidate. But that all changed today as he was questioned about the results of the 2020 election and whether or not he could say Joe Biden was the certified winner versus the actual winner.
Can you tell me why Joe Biden was certified as the winner of the 2020 election?
I'm going back to my constitutional law here, but I don't want to continue to have debate about this, but I believe he had the most electoral votes.
And this isn't just a litmus test for any old cabinet nominee. It's for somebody who is going to be able to oversee some elections, including the November midterm elections. When Bill Pulte was first appointed acting director of national intelligence, David Rode and I, we dug into this. A lot of Democrats said they were concerned that whoever is overseeing the intelligence community could cast doubt on the results of the midterm elections if Republicans lose. They pointed to the fact that Tulsi Gabbard, the predecessor in this role, she had backed President Trump's claims that the 2020 election was stolen. She was part of that FBI raid at Fulton County, Georgia, that took some voting records. So this has been an acute concern for Democrats when talking about this important role of Director of National Intelligence. And to the point you made before, Katie, Democrats saw Jay Clayton as somebody who they could actually support. But I was talking to one Democratic senator after the hearing who said they thought he lost some of that Democratic support today with this line of questioning about the 2020 election.
I mean, I think it was fascinating on a couple of levels. One, he did try to distance himself a little bit at times from Trump. He was asked about impeaching judges, something that Trump has talked about, and he, disavowed that. He was asked about whether the president could run for re-election in 2028, something that he's kind of teased out there, maybe as a troll to his adversary, something he thought he might do despite the Constitution, and Blanche made clear no, he didn't think that was legal. But broadly speaking, he was on board, and obviously he was trying to appeal to, at this point, to an audience of two, Tom Tillis and John Cornyn. It seems like maybe he did succeed with Tom Tillis, who told him at the end of the hearing that he did a, quote, great job. Mm-hmm. But John Cornyn obviously will be the one who all eyes are on now from now on at this point. If John Cornyn says no, this is a nomination that it's hard to see how it advances out of the committee because they lost the vote of Lindsey Graham when he passed away last weekend. So John Cornyn, is a fascinating figure to watch. He's not a rebel. He's not a maverick. He's not, a John McCain who goes onto the floor and gives a thumbs down in a very dramatic way. It's not his way, but he did lose that primary after Trump endorsed his opponent, Ken Paxton. He has nothing to lose, arguably, at this point. And he does seem genuinely offended by this agreement that gives Trump, audit-free, access to all the money he would have had to pay in back taxes. By the way, my colleagues reported that could be $100 million or more given interest. Well, that's a personal benefit to the President of the United States. So that's what John Cornyn is thinking about. All eyes are going to be on him going forward.
I just want to say this. I've known Mr. Clayton for some time. I've worked with him. I worked with him closely when he was at the SEC. But I am bitterly disappointed. And we've tried umpteen different ways to give you the ability to just acknowledge that Joe Biden was the president. Was fairly and duly elected.
I've acknowledged, Senator, that Joe Biden was the president. I've acknowledged that.
And fairly and duly elected.
And fairly and duly elected under our process.
Well, I'll have follow-up questions. I also have to say, as someone who's spent an enormous amount of time on this election interference issue, that it strains credibility. And I trust you. I know you, but it strains credibility to think that you were not aware of Director Gabbard's intervention into domestic election activities in Fulton County, and that was subject of a great deal of consternation and review. Again, maybe the framing of the senator's question you didn't appreciate, but even if you weren't aware, in preparation for this hearing, I would have thought, hey, we got to be ready for the Gabbard questions.
Yeah, I don't want to, it just wasn't something that was on my mind before the preparation for this hearing.
The idea that you acknowledged in your opening comments and to me that the role of the DNI is to look at foreign malign influence. It is outward looking. It is not to participate in domestic law enforcement on a case that I believe in. You can have a completely different view of this, and my Republican colleagues probably do, but on a case of relitigating a 2020 election activity in Georgia. To say that wasn't on your agenda of an issue that would be asked.
No, after Senator Ossoff raised it, it was. And to be clear, the ODNI's role is principally outside the United States. Intelligence community role is principally outside the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So it's around the world and won't say out loud who won the 2020 election. How does that work?
He won't say it, and he knew this question was coming. I've talked to folks who discussed this with him, that he would be asked this. And this is like North Korea-style groupthink. I mean, we've never seen this in American politics. They just
without the group,
words.
Because Bill Barr called it bullshit. Krebs said it was, quote, the most secure American election in history, quote, we did it right. I mean, all of Trump's all the last Jake Claytons said that there was no interference.
But things have changed now. If you work for Donald Trump today in this administration, you have one answer, and that's Joe Biden was certified as president. You're not allowed to say he won. He couldn't use the W word.
You can't even say why he was certified.
Exactly. And, John Ossoff asked, wasn't it humiliating? And of course it was humiliating. You could see it in Jay Clayton's face. Jay Clayton was thought to be one of the normies, right? Like, he ran the SEC in the first Trump administration, and he emerged with a decent reputation. And people were relieved. People want him instead of Bill Pulte as the DNI, or they thought they did. I'll tell you, Mark Warner, who had a good relationship with Jay Clayton before this, the ranking Democrat on that committee, went into that hearing inclined to vote for Jay Clayton. And my understanding is he's not going to vote for him now. I think he said during the hearing he was incredibly disappointed with that performance.
You feel like you're taking crazy pills. You have two separate hearings that you're watching with two separate priorities. The Republicans were all about mifepristone. The Democrats were all about corruption and him acting as a personal attorney. And I think if you're watching and you're not so schooled in the particulars of what has been going on, it is hard to figure out what's happening in Washington.
I had a similar reaction. We were maybe an hour in, and I thought, if you're just an average viewer, and no MS Now viewers are average viewers, but if you're an average viewer, you could tune in and think this was a run-of-the-mill confirmation hearing. There needed to be sort of an overarching statement at the outside, I think, from the Democrats. And I don't want to be overly political here, but to your point, like, it was like,
two
as
different
Nicole
hearings.
Wallace says, Earth 1 and Earth 2, completely two different hearings, two alternate facts and everything else. And I think we really need to, the Democrats, and I would say Republicans should be very concerned about the lack of independence of the Department of Justice and the lack of even any concern that there is a lack of independence.
It's like when you
Wednesday, 15 July, year of our Lord 2026, theoretically on the eve of the speech, I don't even know if the speech is going to come off. The way the White House staff is trying to kill it, maybe it doesn't come off. That's fine. It is what it is. The information will come out, and we'll find out why the White House staff is trying to kill it. I think it's pretty obvious, but they're nonstop briefing left-wing media to try to kill it or downplay it or hurt its impact. That won't happen. The impact's going to be the impact. But I digress. Jay Clayton, he used to be a normie. No, he's still a normie. Jay Clayton is unacceptable as Director of National Intelligence. That was a fiasco today. You just got to step up and say, yo, dude, just step up and say, no, Joe Biden did not win the presidential election in 2020. It was stolen. There's intel out there to that. And I, as DNI, are going to get to the bottom of it and make sure it never happens again. What you saw there, that is the typical Republican, gutless Republican, just going to go along to get along. Well, that ain't going to save your country. If that's over at DNI, just if that is confirmed, because they're bum rushing him to confirm him. They're bum rushing him to confirm him to get Pulte out of there. And take your number 2 principle and mark this down. When they come for President Trump, and they're coming for President Trump to impeach him, Jay Clayton will be one of the first guys to roll over. You think that? Did you see any fight whatsoever in that guy today? That was a punching bag that never punched back. And just the mealy mouth mumbo jumbo. Dude, look him in the eye and tell him what reality is. If you don't believe it, don't hide behind the server. Just say, no, Biden won, Trump lost. Say it. Have enough guts to say it. Don't go behind the scene and say it there. Say it to the public. Come on. We're big boys and girls. We can take it. Because we know what you're saying behind the scene. This is a disastrous, and this is the same time that Todd Blanche has taken nothing but incoming all day and stood up and gave as good as he got. Particularly now they're saying, Huffington Post, there's, a Freudian slip. This huge Freudian slip is gonna ruin his confirmation. This huge Freudian slip. What was the Freudian slip? Remember when they asked him, "Are you a friend of the president?" He goes, "No, I'm not the friend of the president. I'm his lawyer, or I was his lawyer." Right, saying the same thing. I'm not his buddy. I'm not a friend of his. I was his lawyer. I am his lawyer. I was his lawyer. They're saying that Freudian slip where he says, that shows you that, oh my gosh, that Todd Blanche is going to be so biased that he can't get it. We have to vote against him. And let me remind you, I thought La Savita in that crowd had John Cornyn trying to convince the president. John Cornyn is your best friend. John Cornyn is a Texan in the spirit of the Alamo. John Cornyn, basically, who built the wall at your request. John Cornyn, who is the most anti-Sharia guy in history. John Cornyn, who is tough like a Texas Longhorn. That John Cornyn, a man of honor. That John Cornyn, a man of principle. That John Cornyn, he is your best friend. President Trump, he will always have your back. Always. Always and everywhere. It was not a question. Cornyn groveled like no one's ever groveled. He threw out everything about his career, about being part of the Bush junta, about him hating on Trump. And then, of course, Caroline Wren and Matt Bull, all these people started digging up, going into the file and showing how he hated Trump and hated MAGA and hated all of it. But he was being presented by the people who were spending $150 million destroying the grassroots in Texas so that Cornyn could keep his seat. Cornyn's sitting there with just a scintilla of power. I don't know. I'm not going to. I don't think I'm gonna do this, right? Because I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced because left-wing judge down in wherever she is in Miami says this about the weaponization. Because I'm such a stalwart for the Constitution. Cornyn, you're corrupt. You're finished. Cornyn, when it all finished, when you came to tell the media, and I don't know, you were quoting poetry and T.E. Lawrence. I don't know, you were doing all kind of crazy stuff. In that room, they had a tiny room at like a Marriott, one of those conference rooms that can sit about 50 people. And there were lots of spare chairs in there. There was not one person, not one voter was there to support you at the end. You had no following. Your complete creation of just money in Bush junta Texas politics. But now that you have just a tiny sliver of power, of leverage, you're going to hold it over the president of these United States. I don't think Todd Blanche is the right guy. I don't think Todd Blanche is the right guy. I have to think. We understand there are going to be great thoughts coming out. You were head of the Supreme Court in Texas. We understand there are going to be great legal thoughts. You're like Felix Frankfurter, right? We understand there's going to be great legal thoughts coming out of that brain of yours that's been ossified by too many years in Washington, D.C., in the nation's capital. Pathetic. Short break.
Powerful new vehicles for our military already in a different truck, and Mack truck is doing really well, and they've been great. And because we're here in Pennsylvania, where State Trooper Michael Farrow was killed just 2 weeks ago by an illegal alien operating a semi-truck on a commercial driver's license, which he should never have had. He was here illegally, came in through Biden. Today I'm making one more important announcement. My administration will soon take historic action to get illegal alien truck drivers who are just killing a lot of people. They can't read signs. Many of them are on drugs or alcohol, and they shouldn't be driving these things, and they came in totally illegally, and we don't want them, but they are driving all over American roadways, and we're going to replace them with proud American veterans who are going to take our veterans, who are going to make them, we're going to teach them a lot about driving trucks, and in many cases they know. We're going to say any American who's driven a heavy truck for our military will automatically be eligible for a commercial driver's license. So we're going to get them taken care of. And the radical left is very much opposed to that, but it doesn't matter what they want because we're the ones that are running it. And just to finish, I want to thank our great Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He's fantastic, that man. Missile defense show. We're building a golden dome over our country, and it's going to be a very effective one. We had 111 missiles shot a few weeks ago by our lovely friends from Iran. They were aimed at the Abraham Lincoln, which is a beautiful aircraft carrier, by the way. The SS Abraham Lincoln, 111 in a short period of time. Out of the 111 missiles shot, 111 missiles were knocked into the sea easily. Think of that. We'll have Iran defeated soon. They'll be defeated very soon. And then I guess it'll be even better. But, you know, even during this, it's been amazing. I mean, to think, so I call it a military operation, but call it whatever you want. It's incredible. It's like it hasn't made a dent. A lot of people thought oil would go up to $350 a barrel, and today it's at $79. A couple of days ago, it was at $68. It went up a little bit because I had to take tough action because they did not obey what they're supposed to obey. I mean, they just didn't do it. So we took a little action, but it'll all, when that settles down, I think you're going to have $55 oil, which is all great for what you're doing, maybe less than that.
Okay, Neil McCabe, you're at, I think, Carlisle Barracks. Tell us, what was this?
Yes.
What was this about today, sir?
Well, I think if you want to look at sort of the big picture, what it really was about is that the administration has told its people that they're not allowed to participate in the Aspen Security Forum, which is sort of the globalist security forum that's being held at this moment. And so this is sort of that alternative forum. But what it really was about is what General Kane talked about yesterday, and that is getting defense and war production up to a tempo that can support operations around the world. And over again, the speakers were talking about how can we fix acquisition and how can we fix production. And that's what the industrial leaders were saying. That's what the defense officials were saying. That's what, Secretary of War Hegseth was talking about. Hey, we're going to move beyond the sort of the old school, the guys who've been doing contracts for years and years. We're going to bring in the fast runners. Hegseth said, you shouldn't have to sue in order to do business with the Defense Department or the War Department. And he says, that's what we're going to bring in. We're going to bring in guys who can do the job. And of course, the president was here to put his stamp of approval on it. And I'll also say that Senator Dave McCormick put on a very, very good program. His staff, it was his program, it was his staff, and he was often participating in the discussions. And overall, I think he did a great job also, and maybe earned some points for maybe some national politics, Steve.
Great. I'm confused about something. President, this is the second time or the third or fourth time somebody's mentioned 111 missiles were fired the other day. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were covering it for us, or at least Zier was. Didn't Pete Hegseth tell us 2 months ago that all the missiles had been destroyed?
Well, I think that's a moving target, like those missile launchers themselves, Steve. And, there's missiles and there's missiles launchers. And, one of the things that they've said is they've destroyed the munitions production capacity so the Iranians can't build new missiles. And they've taken out those launchers, so they may have missiles lying around, but they can't launch them because those sites have been taken out. And also, in the last few days, we've seen them go after further sites that sort of take away the eyes and ears of the Iranians as they go after our forces.
Neil, where do people go on social media to get all your updates, sir?
They can find me on all the socials at Reporter McCabe.
Neil, great job today. And very impressive. This is the alternative, the Trump alternative to the Aspen Security Forum, which has nothing but a bunch of left-wing globalists out there. Steve Gruber, you did the anchor duty down on two separate confirmation hearings. Let's do Todd Blanche first, then we'll do Jay Clayton. Your thoughts today as you were down in the Capitol following these, sir?
It's so predictable, Steve. They show up, they being the Democrats, to give speeches and go after. And what is Hazy Morono's obsession with sex? I mean, that's one of the takeaways. It's just smear jobs, asking Todd Blanche whether he's been involved in forcible sex and so forth, and you have things like that. And then at other times when the senators ask questions, Blanche just shoots them down going, that's completely absurd. But I will say this, I had a chance to talk to John Cornyn, the outgoing senator in Texas, and right now, I got to be honest, I think he's a no vote. I don't know what Tillis's vote is going to be, but I think he's probably wavering. But at this point, I think this is a nomination that's in deep trouble, to be honest. And it could be political sour grapes, or it could be legitimate questions about that slush fund, the $1.9 billion that they were focusing on. Cornyn was, and so were the Democrats. So I think this is a nomination. And this is why people hate politics in Washington, Steve, because, look, they're just up there to give political speeches, to grandstand, to try to get clicks on social media. They're not doing the work of the American people. They're doing work to pad their own election campaign funds and frankly, today embarrass themselves.
So, Gruber, this is not your first rodeo for Steve Gruber to say at 5:15 in the afternoon that Todd Blanche is in serious trouble at the committee level. Hang on a second. We got a clip. I want to show you talking to John Cornyn. Let's play it.
Senator, there's a lot of questions about what's going to be said tomorrow night by the president when it comes to the 2020 election. It was mentioned in here today. Any idea what you might hear tomorrow, or anything that could change your mind about what happened in 2020?
I, frankly, am more concerned about the upcoming midterm elections than I am of what happened in 2020. Obviously, election integrity is very important, but I personally don't see any point in relitigating an election that occurred 6 years ago.
Some are suggesting that the 2020 election would make both senators from Georgia illegitimate, is the word floating around. Your thoughts?
Well, I'll wait to hear what he says, but that's quite a bold assertion. I'll wait to hear what he says to back it up.
But you've heard him say this before.
Gruber, give me that one more time. Your belief, having sat through this today and then talked to Cornyn afterwards and heard Tillis, you believe, and this is at the committee level, you think that this nomination of the president, which is, there is no plan B right now. There may be a plan B at DNI, but there ain't a plan B on Attorney General. Why does Steve Gruber, after the hearing at 5:20 in the afternoon, why do you think this nomination's in trouble, sir?
Look, Cornyn's not a believer. He's not on board. He wants to know about that slush fund. At least that's his go-to comment. And I have done these things before. You can sense the room. He's not on board with this. He is a 50-50 and probably less than that today. I don't know what it's going to take from Todd Blanche to get him over the hump, but it's a heavy lift from where I stand, and the sense of it from Cornyn, and you could hear his mood right there. He's not interested in hearing about the 2020 election. He's not interested in much of anything. I don't think he's much interested in Todd Blanche. I mean, that's my takeaway from his demeanor in the hearing, his approach to Todd Blanche. He almost sounded like he should be on the other side of the aisle. That's the way he came across today. And then you got Senator Tillis. Of course, he's on his way out as well. I'm not sure he's a yes vote. And look, you can only afford one, and then the nomination dies in committee. And that's the sense I took away today.
Let me ask you about, we got a minute or so. Let me ask you about Jay Clayton over at DNI. Your thoughts on that?
I thought he was masterful, actually, in a lot of his responses. They tried to bait him to a lot of questions about who won the 2020 election. Did Donald Trump win or lose the 2020 election? He said, I'm not playing those games. I thought he acquitted himself reasonably well. We'll see how that plays out, but I think he's in a much stronger position as the sun sets here in Washington on this Wednesday than Todd Blanche is over to lead the Department of Justice. That's my takeaway. That's my sense of things, that Jay Clayton is in a much stronger position tonight than Todd Blanche, and I don't know what can save Todd Blanche at this point, because I do not think that John Cornyn is going to cast a yes vote.
Wow. Steve, where do people go for social media? Where do they go to get the song? You're going to be with us tomorrow night as we do live coverage of the president's address to the nation about the 2020 election and foreign interference. Where do people go, sir?
At Steve Gruber Show on all the major platforms. At Steve Gruber Show, X, Facebook, all the regular places. Thanks, Steve.
And where do we get, real quickly, where do we get the song? This amazing song.
Anywhere. One Nation. Yeah, One Nation by Steve Gruber and the Freedom Project. All streaming platforms. Keep it going. It's streaming better than any song, I'm told, in Real America's music history. Yeah. So it's still doing really well all over the country.
The Real America Voice audience ought to appreciate and savor the time we have with Gruber. Because I think now that he's talent, now that he's musical talent, you never know where this is going to end up. Gruber, we love you. Great coverage today. We'll see you tomorrow night, brother. Steve Gruber.
Thanks, Steve.
This is why I love these guys. They'll do duty. If McCabe's in Pennsylvania going Carl Barrett, Gruber will be covering the hearings. Although he hosts his own show. Fantastic. Okay. Wayne Allyn Root is going to drop some truth bombs here in the War Room in a moment.
Ratcliffe is currently the CIA director. And to your point,
he was the DNI in 2020.
He was the DNI in 2020 and made it clear that, for example, when it came to China, made no assertion that there was direct Chinese interference that would have changed the vote outcome of the 2020 election. And I think that this is important when we take into account Tulsi Gabbard is no longer the director of national intelligence. And I just want to read a quote to you from a current administration official who is emphasizing that we need to consistently talk about Bill Pulte and John Solomon, the former journalist turned special government employee. Both of those men brought in 1 month ago into these roles. And the way that it's framed to me is that essentially John Solomon is the one that is pushing a lot of the conspiracy theories, then claims that there is raw material that the intelligence community has access to that they're not released, and that he is the one putting this into the ear of Donald Trump, that there is actually evidence that would support his claim that the election in 2020 was stolen. But then it's Bill Pulte, the current director of national intelligence, the acting one, who is essentially the one that has promised the president, we are told by multiple sources, is the one that is essentially doing whatever it takes to carry it out. The quote, I just want to read to you. We're publishing on ms.now right now, but we wanted to get this on air. Quote, this is an administration official who has been familiar with the raw intelligence available across the intelligence community, and that is, quote, it's that network of people, referring to Solomon and Pulte, that is the real effing problem. They try to put bits and pieces together and then make these conclusions. Everything I have seen, it's not what's there. And the reason that I'm emphasizing this is the fact that for the first time, I would say in the second Trump administration, to your point, Nicole, there are factions within this White House. And there is one faction that is clearly winning out. And it is that Bill Pulte, John Solomon faction, those that have lifted up and supported claims made by people like Michael Flynn. And in the last months, they have had greater access to the president of the United States than ever before. And it is people like Susie Wiles and other in this administration that have effectively last year, I am told, saw all of this, essentially the assessments from people like John Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard, and knew what was available through the intelligence community and clearly made the determinations that there was not enough to go public at that point in time. Fast forward to June of 2026, Donald Trump has turned to two people who have made the commitment to do just that for him. And that is what is happening now. It's those two individuals that are making good on what the president has demanded for 5.5 years.
Wow. That is what we call a bombshell, folks. Wow. Man, MSNBC. I guess when you're choosing sides in the White House, you pick MSNBC to leak to. You've explained everything. Wayne Allyn Root, what is going on here, brother? I'm saying right now it's 50-50 whether you even have this presentation tomorrow night. sir, the way the White House staff is fighting it. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I would use the term Democrats use. I think Democrats are living on stolen land in Washington, D.C. I think it's pretty obvious they stole 2020. It's pretty obvious they stole both races in Georgia. And I got to tell you, it's pretty obvious they stole both races in Arizona. I think it's pretty obvious they've stolen Senate and House seats. I think, it's pretty obvious that the real example of foreign interference in American elections is not even China or Serbia or Venezuela or Italy. Those are all the places I've heard that foreign interference went on. I think the real example that's easily provable is illegal aliens voting in American elections. Democrats, that was their game plan. That's Cloward Piven. That's Obama's game plan. My college classmates, supposedly at Columbia University, where we learned Cloward Piven, Steve, which is you flood the nation with people on welfare till the economy collapses and the country collapses, and then you get everyone begging for government to save them, and then you turn America into a socialist nation. And when they couldn't get enough Americans to go on welfare to completely collapse the system, they said, let's open the borders and let's bring in 50 million foreigners to want cradle-to-grave welfare and to give them everything they want in return for voting Democrat. And we'll change the demographics of America, the great replacement, and we'll turn America into a socialist nation filled with foreign invaders who vote in American elections. That's the real low-hanging fruit of this national security emergency for elections that President Trump should be, and I think will be, calling in the next month. I don't think he's going to call it on Thursday night. I think he's going to lay out a case of stolen elections, and he's going to lay out the case why he's going to call a national security emergency for elections. And I think he'll declare it in the next month by the mid to late August or the first week of September, something like that. But it's illegal aliens voting on American soil and putting Democrats into stolen positions in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House, even more important than the 2020 election. Democrats are living on stolen land, quote Wayne Root.
Wayne, the evidence will be so compelling that people like Tom Tillis and John Cornyn will demand of Thune that we immediately take up the Save America Act and do the standing filibuster and pass it. So your executive order is going to be OBE, right? Isn't because seriously, you saw Cornyn was interviewed by Steve Gruber. Cornyn's going to go to Thune and say we must immediately call the Senate back. We must pass the Save America Act. If we have to do the standing filibuster, anything we're going to have to do. Is my reasoning correct, sir?
Yeah, you're being very funny, Steve. I understand the humor in it. It's not going to happen for those guys. Look, we've had Jeff Sessions, we've had Bill Barr, you got the Cornyns, you got the horrible Mitch McConnells. You got all these people that are in the perfect place to always stop us. You know, I thought the most significant thing I've heard in a long time was when Tom Tillis said, maybe this was 2 months ago, whoever the new AG is, he's going to have to sit in front of me and admit that January 6th was like an insurrection and an overthrow of the government, and the January 6ers deserve to be in jail. That's coming from a Republican senator. There are, in my opinion, traitors, backstabbers, all amongst us on the Republican side who are put in place by the deep state, by the DC swamp, to make sure we never get the right people in office around President Trump, so we can never, ever carry out what you and I know needs to be done, which is clean all the communists out of government, clean the deep state out of government, clean them out of the military, clean them out of every aspect of American government. And we can never quite do it because there's always a Tom Tillis, a Republican turncoat, backstabber, owned by the deep state, standing in the way. And it's really, after a while, it gets sickening, you know? And I got to tell you something, Steve. I don't know where you stand on this one. I'm going on a limb. I don't even know where you stand. You may disagree with me. But when Lindsey Graham died, I got to tell you, does Lindsey Graham's sister deserve to be a United States senator? I got a problem with that. I know she got sworn in today or getting sworn in today. I got a problem with that. What's her qualification for being a U.S. senator? Is she on our team? I have no idea what she stands for. She's never been in office. She's never run for office. I have no idea if she's really a MAGA conservative and she's going to do a good job in at least the next few months and carry on for the MAGA agenda. Do you know that?
Yeah.
I don't know why she deserves to be a U.S. senator. I have no idea.
It's absolutely. It's a critical question, given the fact that we're down, just a vote or two. Let me ask you, because I want to make sure I get this for run out of time. your theory is obviously the Senate's not going to do anything. They're treating President Trump like a lame duck.
Correct.
So therefore, you believe the predicate will be laid out tomorrow and in future rollouts that by mid-August to late August, maybe early September, enough information will be there that President Trump, as commander-in-chief, will declare a national security emergency around the security of voting. Is that your theory?
That's correct. And I want to make it very clear to everybody, because sometimes people don't understand what I'm saying. This is not an EO. This is not an executive order. This is a very different thing than an executive order. A national security emergency is not the same as an executive order. An executive order can be taken to court. It could be challenged in court. You have to go through the courts, each appeals process. That takes a long time, and then it has to go before the Supreme Court eventually. And by the way, after the rulings on birthright citizenship and counting ballots long after Election Day is over, I don't know if you can even count on the Supreme Court ever again to be on our side on something like the Save America Act. So that's why I tried to come up with something, Steve, that's better than the Save America Act. It's a Save America Act on steroids. It's a national security emergency declaration for elections like the one I proposed that Trump adopted in 2019, national security election for the border, where he was able to bypass Congress, use the money for the Pentagon budget to build the wall, secure our border. Democrats never sued because they realized that in 1983, the Supreme Court ruled very clearly that you cannot take a national security emergency to court and win in the courts. You've got to get a 2/3 vote in both houses of Congress to overcome a national security emergency. So I'm trying to give an option here that I believe is a much better option than a Save America Act. I love the Save America Act, but it doesn't deal with machines or paper ballots, by the way. And most importantly, it's never going to pass. It will not pass, and if it does pass, it will never be in effect because of legal challenges in time for the midterms. My idea, national security emergency, could actually be in effect for the midterms, and Democrats cannot stop it. So I'm trying to get us some ammunition here to win the midterms, and I think this does it.
And your belief is, after tomorrow night, and there are going to be other revelations coming forward in the next couple of weeks, that by the time we get to mid-August, a predicate will be laid that the president then as commander-in-chief to declare a national security emergency and have all these details in there about what the predicate is, why he's doing it, and what the immediate solutions he's going to implement to make sure that the 2026 elections are free and fair, correct?
Correct. And you know, one question I've never really heard a lot of people ask, I'm going to ask it right now on Steve's show. I hope the whole world hears me ask it. Who gave the order in 2020 for 5 states to shut down the counting of the votes? How come nobody ever asked that in front of Tom Tillis and John Cornyn and all these turncoats? Isn't the president of the United States? Trump was the president. He didn't give the order. He didn't say shut down the vote. Who decided for the first time in America's history to stop counting votes at midnight with Trump winning by hundreds of thousands of votes in those 5 states? And then we woke up in the morning, in the middle of the night, they decided to restart the count, and suddenly Trump was behind, and they did it with no witnesses in the room. And you think I'm so stupid? I may have been bored yesterday, Steve, but I wasn't bored in the last 5 minutes, that I would believe that that is a fair election that wasn't stolen. For the first time in history, they stopped counting with our guy way ahead and was about to win a legislative, an electoral landslide. And then in the middle of the night, they started counting again, no witnesses in the room, and suddenly all the votes came in for the other side, and suddenly Trump was behind. And you expect me to believe that? No problem.
They shut it down and said we're going to reconvene at like 6 or 7 in the morning. Of course, at 2 or 3 they started recounting. By 6 or 7, they're up. It's just it's just one of those things, Wayne. You just got to accept it. Wayne, where do people go to get your show? You're going to be on with us tomorrow night. Where do people go to get your show? Where do they go to get all your content, particularly all the articles and writings you've been doing about this national security emergency, sir?
Yeah, my website's rootforamerica.com. I'm Wayne Root. I root for America all day. Rootforamerica.com. It's got all my TV shows, all my podcasts. I've got 2 shows on Rav, and one of them is actually on Rav's YouTube channel following your show right now. It's on at 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock. I start it in 15 minutes, and it's a call-in show. So it's 1-800-347-ROOT. Call me. I'd love to talk to you. I talk to everybody who calls. 1-800-347-ROOT. rootforamerica.com, or email me, wayneroot@gmail.com. Thank you, Steve. Love you and appreciate everything you do.
Love you too, brother, and we will see you tomorrow night. Wayne Allen Root.
You got it.
War. Want to thank our sponsor, Birch Gold. Now more than ever, I think it is a good time to understand how physical gold fits into the system, why it's been around for 5,000 years, why it's been a hedge against times of financial turbulence. You think we're in turbulence? I think so. President is having meetings right now, or going to have meetings when he gets back to D.C. about what he's going to do in this Iranian situation. And right now, a lot of it's going to be kinetic. He's warned about that. We're going to go into even more, I think, turbulence. President says we're going to have to do this, get through it to denuclearize Iran. Whether that happens or not, it's going to affect global capital markets. Birchgold.com/Bannon. End of the dollar empire. Get to Philip Patrick and the team and get to them today with all, not some, but all of your questions. Short commercial break. Patrick K. O'Donnell, my favorite, next.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Jim Rickards has still got the special for the 250th anniversary. RickardsIntel.com. RickardsIntel.com. That's a special landing page right now. Strategic Intelligence, $17.76 for a quarter. That means you get 3 of them. If you don't love it, you just tell them, hey, I don't want to renew. You get your money back. This is a no-risk offer. Strategic Intelligence based upon predictive analytics. You don't want to miss it. Rickards is the best, so go check it out. RickardsIntel.com, $17.76. If you don't love it, you just don't renew at the end of 90 days. You get your money back. No risk. Also, take your phone out if you need to get to Birch Gold. The information quick. Text Bannon, B-A-N-N, 989898. You get the ultimate guide for investing, gold and precious metals, plus tons of other information, all of it free, no obligation, and you get to Philip Patrick and the team. And Philip is with me for the first hour on Saturday, so do not miss that. We're going to go through deficit debt, the history of countries that get to 100% of debt, all of it, and you're going to want to listen and learn, or watch and learn. Patrick K. O'Donnell, you're heading to Marblehead. Why are you heading to Marblehead? The great heroes of your book about the Marblehead men. Why are you going to Marblehead tomorrow?
Going to Marblehead tomorrow for a big talk on Sunday. There's also an encampment where the regiment, which is the Marblehead Regiment, as a sort of reenacts what their duties were during the American Revolution. But on Sunday at Abbott Hall, which is a giant building in Marblehead, which is one of the most picturesque towns in the East Coast. It's an incredible port town. They are remembering the 250th, and I'm there to remember it with them. And I've been invited back by the town, and it's a special place for me. They really embrace the book. They embrace their history. And there are families there that have been in Marblehead for over 350 years. And many of those families are still there. And they're there to remember their heritage of these men, the indispensable mariners that saved the country multiple times, Steve. First at the East River during the Battle of Brooklyn, where the providential fog sits in, and it's on the shoulders of the Marblehead Mariners, where the Army has saved 9,000 men, including its equipment and the wounded. And then it's later at Pell's Point that there's a rear guard by John Glover that saves the Army, and they're able to retreat to White Plains. And then also at the crossing of the Delaware, it's the Marblehead Mariners that are only men that bring them across.
You've got these guys at Marblehead. The story is unbelievable. These folks are tough as boot leather. When I talk to you about resilience and anti-fragile, the Marblehead men are anti-fragile, okay? They're not beta males. They do American Dunkirk, which is like, when you read it, you go, this is unbelievable, the courage and the tenacity. But then they're the guys in the boat on crossing the Delaware, on the raid that basically turned around the American Revolution. We were done. It was over, okay? It had been 6 months of retreats, strategic retreats, and they did it. To turn up in those two moments of history, shows that you're on point. You're in the middle of what's happening, right? You're not you're not marginalia. You're in the heart of it. The American Dunkirk right there at Brooklyn Heights, and of course, crossing the Delaware. So they are just amazing, sir.
These are men whose personal agency will change the course of history. It's a small group, but an elite group. And had it not been for their agency and their actions, we would not be here today as the United States of America.
Unbelievable. Now, tell me, there's something with Glover's house. I got about a minute to explain to the audience. You'll do more. We're going to try to get you live over the next couple of days, although it's going to be crazy with the president's speech, but we're trying to get you live. What's the situation with Glover's house?
There's his first original house, which is in Glover Square in the town of Marblehead itself, which is preserved and saved. It's somebody's actually living there. And there's a second house that he purchased in 1782 during the American Revolution. And that home is potentially scheduled for demolition. There's a number of stakeholders involved. I'm not an expert on that.
Whoa. Demolition. You're going to demolish Glover's home? It's one of the greatest years this country's ever had. What are we talking about?
I hope that it doesn't come to that. I think that there's a very good, strong possibility that there will be an understanding where they're able to preserve it in some manner. I'm not an expert on any of that. If you go to SaveTheGlover.org, there's more information on the website, and you can donate to it. And it's a 501c, and it's a legitimate. Yeah. It's a very important, and it's a good cause that is worth. There's something about the power of place in an artifact. Where you've got something that's just culturally very significant to the history of the United States.
We're going to let you go. I want to talk. Where do people go to get all your books, all your writings? Because you're our finest combat historian.
At Combat Historian is on Twitter and Getter, and all the books are on Amazon, or you can go to Barnes & Noble. They're usually featured up front, or in most independent bookstores.
So
Patrick, it's always a pleasure and an honor to be on the World.
No. You're beloved. No, Breitbart. We've done this, I don't know, for about 15 years. So Patrick sends me his galleries.
It'd be great to see people on Sunday at Abbott Hall, where the men, 2 p.m., where the men drilled right in the front of that hall.
Abbott Hall
is where these
I
men
want everybody
drilled in
locally to turn out. I
It's
had
free.
a chance to read the Galleys of Revolutionary Sniper. It reads like a novel. You've knocked it out of the park. That's going to be your next #1 best-selling hit. You're on a roll, brother.
Thank you, Steve.
Your research and your
Thank
writing
you.
is extraordinary. I'm
It's
going to reach
about
out to you
rugged
after the show.
individualism.
We're going to get some people up there to see you on Sunday. We got to do that. I'll call you after the show. Okay. I want to thank Birch Gold. I want to thank all of our sponsors. Patriot Mobile 972 Patriot. Call someone right now. If you feel like you need a prayer and not a shift of phone services, call them, get a prayer, and then maybe even talk to them about the phone. 972 Patriot. What Jenny and Glenn Story have done is historic. We have the Patriots today. That would be you. You are anti-fragile. You are resilient. Divine providence works through your agency. How do I know that? Donald Trump's in the White House twice. Let's make sure we grind this out now and save this country from all these dark elements, scary elements, Marxist and communist elements that are swirling around. The Second Hour War Room next.